Hi guys, today we're going to talk about interest groups. So what is an interest group? Well, they are a collection of individuals that are seeking to influence government policy. They are often focused on a specific issue and not politics in the general sense. They are often referred to as maybe a faction, a pressure group, special interest, or organized interest. So basically, they're a collection of individuals who share a common interest or attitude, and they interact with one another directly or indirectly to affect the policy to achieve their specific goals. They do spend a great deal of money and put a lot of effort into persuading government officials to support bills or policies that they feel would be beneficial. Interest groups need three resources to be successful. First thing they need is numbers, which is the size of their membership. They need money, which is their financial resources. And they need intensity, which is commitment level of its members. It's important to understand that interest groups are not political parties. They do not nominate candidates. They are only concerned with a few specific issues, and they're not interested in gaining members with different opinions. They are trying to advance their goals and not the interest in anyone, and are not interested in anyone who does not support their cause. They are organized on the basis of common values rather than geographic location. Furthermore, we know that political parties are more flexible than interest groups, and political parties change their platforms as needed, while interest groups do not do this. So what roles do interest groups play? Well, they're trying to influence the making and content of public policy. They do this by promoting awareness of public affairs. They represent people who share their views, regardless of where these people live. They are providing useful information to government on specific policy issues, and they also help people to take part in the political process. It was the founders of the Republic that were referred to what are present-day interest groups. They would call them factions. James Madison in Federalist 10, he foresaw factions as inevitable, but in his eyes, troubling aspects of any free society could cause instability and injustice. However, he argued that factions should not be destroyed. If we look at Shays' Rebellion, that is probably one of the earliest examples of a faction. And they were farmers trying to pressure the government, if you remember, to get back their land and their back pay. Of course, this group went more of the violent role, but not today. We don't see that. They more lobby in government. So why do people join interest groups? Well, they do it when they have a shared interest and the opportunity and the incentive to join together. One of the main reasons is for economic self-interest. It is also based on one's beliefs, values, and attitudes and social reasons. We do know that most who join tend to be from upper income levels and labor unions because they want to secure better wages and benefits for their members. If we look at the American Association of Retired Persons, often known as AARP, they're a senior group and they work for higher Social Security benefits. Or if you were very into the environment and protecting the environment, you might join the Sierra Club because they work to maintain the value of our environment. Interest groups serve to connect citizens with our government, known as our linkage mechanism. If they can get the backing of even a small number of well-placed policymakers, they are likely to get many of the benefits they seek. They only need a single ally in one of the three branches of government. Support is usually easy to acquire because the group usually has resources. They have the information, they can bring money, and they can also bring votes. So, who are the interest groups? Well, we have the citizens groups, which are non-economic, and we have the economic interest groups, and they are organized primarily for economic reasons. So if we take a look at some of our economic groups, you see we have business, labor, farm, and professionals. The purpose of the economic group is to make profits, provide jobs, improve pay, or to protect a particular occupation. When we talk about business groups, it's important to note that more than half of all the groups formally registered to lobby Congress are business organizations. Citizens groups, or the non-economic groups, consist of public interest groups, single issue groups, and ideology groups. These groups are joined by a purpose, incentive, the satisfaction of contributing to what they regard as a worthy goal or purpose. Citizens often join and are willing to participate simply because they believe the cause is worthy. Some citizens groups work to advance the interest of a particular social grouping, and some to promote a political ideology. Single issue groups organizations have a specific issue policy, like take, for example, the NRA. That would be an example of a single issue group. Non-economic groups are sometimes called citizens groups, and they are interest groups that fight for causes instead of working for material benefits. And then we see some of the benefits and the purposes of the non-economic groups on this slide. When we look at public interest groups, they claim to work for the good of the whole society, not just one part of it. Single issue groups tend to be very strongly driven, and they are composed of members who are passionately committed to a particular cause. And ideology groups often work to change cultural norms, values, and prevailing stereotypes. So the question is, how do these groups influence the government on policy making? Well, one of the biggest ways they do it is through lobbying. And that is the process of making direct contact with government leaders in an attempt to influence policy. Lobbyists are the representatives of interest groups who conduct this work. While anyone can lobby Congress, the most effective lobbyists are paid professionals who work full-time at this. They are hired by many clients and often lobby for multiple and diverse causes. The best paid are in the six-digit figures, and their value often comes from their connections to members of Congress and the access they may have. There's several types of lobbying, as you can see on this screen, inside, outside, and grassroots. So inside is more the direct communication between organized interest and policymakers, and that's based on the assumed value of closed inside contact with policymakers. We have what's known as a web of influence, which are the groups and the policymakers, and we often refer to this as the iron triangle. And this would be your bureaucrats, your lobbyists, and your legislators. And they have a close relationship among special interests, congressional committees, and the bureaucracy. And this community can have a very extensive collection of power if all three sides of the triangle want the same thing. When we talk about outside lobbying, this is a form of lobbying in which interest groups seek to use public pressure as a means of influencing officials. This kind of involves bringing constituency pressure to bear on policymakers. And grassroots lobbying is a form of lobbying designed to persuade officials that a group's policy position has strong support from the supporters. And here we have a picture of an iron triangle. And here's a little bit more information on inside and outside lobbying if you care to read about that. Another vehicle for interest groups is to influence government through what we call PACs. These are political action committees. And they are organizations that are dedicated to raising and spending money to either elect or defeat political candidates that don't support their cause. Most PACs are directly connected to specific corporations or labor groups or recognized political parties. So Microsoft is a corporate PAC. The Teamster Union, which is organized labor, they are a PAC. And under federal law, an organization automatically becomes a PAC if they are receiving contributions or making expenditures more than $1,000 for the purpose of influencing a federal election. Now, individuals that contribute to federal PACs are limited to $5,000 per year, but they can back as many candidates as they wish. We ended up moving into what we call the Super PAC, which is officially known as the Independent Expenditure Only Committee. And this has become an increasingly popular method of influencing for special interest groups. The Super PAC is like a traditional political action committee, but it does not have many of the restrictions that a regular PAC has. For instance, a Super PAC can raise or spend unlimited amounts of money for the sole purpose of supporting or opposing a political candidate. So basically, a Super PAC can directly attack a political candidate. So, sometimes when you see those commercials and it'll be on attacking a specific political presidential candidate, and it'll say this ad was paid for by, whatever, the NRA. So that's the NRA paying for that particular commercial. It is not the candidate themselves. And Super PACs came about in a 2010 Supreme Court decision, which is known as the Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. And that lifted the prohibitions on corporate spending in elections. While it is riddled with loopholes, for example, candidates cannot communicate or coordinate with PAC organizers, but they can speak to a group of donors at a fundraising event, but they must leave the gathering before any planning or coordinating about fundraising occurs. And we know that the Super PAC was extremely crucial part of the 2012 presidential election, because that's when we had a lot of attack campaigns. So there's a couple videos in your Canvas on PACs and Super PACs if you care to watch those. And I hope this gave you some further information. Thank you.